Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of DC Stargirl. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, well, we get introduced to Jenny, kind of finding out that she grew up in a home, because obviously her dad died, and it seems like at first she's like, oh, is this about my brother? And the lady sending her off isn't, like, she's somewhat compassionate because she's like, right, you don't have to be so perfect. People will like you the way you are. Plus, it's annoying. It's kind of annoying, and just kind of sends her on her way. And obviously, like, the ring was kind of left to her amongst her dad's belongings. And the ring activates, and that's how she found her way to Blue Valley, because that was like 6 days ago when she got the ring, and it led her all the way here. And so it's the sad thing of, like, Courtney's the one that gets in the most trouble. It is the thing, it is kind of messed up because Courtney gets in trouble. It's like, she broke into our house, and she's like, Jenny's like, I didn't, I just wanted to get my dad's lantern because I thought it was stolen. And the fact is, I just wanted to get it back. I didn't actually want to go into a fight, meaning it's like, to be fair, Courtney started it, but she had every right to. It's like, there's an intruder in our house. Yeah, I'm the one getting in trouble. I mean, to be fair, you did a lot of damage to the house. In fact, you did probably 90% of the damage, if not all the damage in the house. But then Pat's find out, like, who she is. It's like, right, I'm Alan Scott's daughter. It's like, okay. And so it turns out a lot of the Justice Society of America people, members did have children. They just didn't talk about it, to protect them. Which is kind of interesting to think about. Like, even amongst their ranks, they still didn't talk about it, their kids around each other. Just, it's like, right, but I guess it's like, right, you don't want to take the chance that information leaks. That's so interesting. Like, each other's secret identities, but each other's, like, real names and stuff, but you don't know about each other's kids. I thought that was such an interesting development and kind of conversation in that regard. But it's like, right. Because now, and I didn't think about it at the time, but they did bring it up later on. It's like, right, she is a legacy. She's one of two, because the only other legacy amongst the current JSA is her and Rick. Everyone else is someone else who took up the mantles. So, at first she's like, wait, you have the cosmic staff, so that must mean you're, because at first she's geeking out. She's like, wait, you're Stripe C? Oh my God, you're a legend. Like, you're a mechanical genius and stuff like that. And it's like him being a legend, which I'm like, anytime I hear the word legend, there's only one set of legends, Missy. But nevertheless, it's also the thing of him being like, I am, and then Courtney going, he is. It's like, she still doesn't look at Pat. I mean, because he was allocated to just being a sidekick, so it's not like he was one of the main tier people. I don't think they ever talked about anyone else's sidekicks. Like, because that's always an interesting thing in the universe, is like the sidekicks. Like, that's what Young Justice is all about, like the sidekicks being like the main focus, because they always kind of get allocated like, oh, I'm just a side dude. Like, obviously, like, I feel like out of anyone, the other shows have kind of tackled that a little bit, but even then, those other side characters still kind of fall to the wayside to the super. It's just an interesting thing of like, right, like, it was Pat like the only sidekick, or like, I don't know. It's just, I don't think they've ever really talked about that. I would assume so, because like all the other like main JSA members died, and he was like the only one that survived as a sidekick. I think that's kind of what that allocates to. But nevertheless, she's immediately like, oh man, you have the star set, so you must be Starman's. Like, no, not Starman's daughter. Then you must be Pat's. Nope, stepdaughter. He must have trained you. Yeah, kinda. And it's like, and you could I really like how that does inform the rest of the episode, because Courtney's kind of upset, because it's just like, at first and foremost, it's like, oh, she had to kind of give up her room. Not really her decision. It was more so her mom kind of forcing her, sleeping on a couch with the dog. And obviously, it's a situation of her not trusting Jenny, but it's like, the ring only worked for Alan, so if it's working for her, it's a good chance. But it's like, first and foremost, the conversation comes up later on, like, there are people who popped up in this town who ended up not being who they claimed to be, so, but it's just, Courtney's just so on edge, trying not to get caught off guard, trying to be super vigilant. But also, when she wakes up, she's cooked breakfast. Also notice, like, she made everyone else plates, but, I mean, I guess that's the thing of, like, oh, Courtney can fix her own food, because, I mean, I made the pancakes are right here on a plate, but it's like, oh, she didn't really prepare a plate for Courtney, but it's like, oh, is this your seat? Once again, it's kind of that thing of like, oh, being Miss Perfect, even being like, oh my God, these like pancakes are so good, and it's like, oh, what are we going to do today? So I'm going to take Jenny, let her learn more about the lantern. What about me? Oh, you're going to go to school, summer school, and kind of rubbing in her face. And I did like that when she got there and just kind of like, but then she saw Yolanda was there. She's like, oh my God, why are you here? It's like, my parents sent me here because even though I got straight A's, they wanted to kind of teach me a lesson to stay out of trouble. And she's like, oh my God, that's so terrible. She's like having to fight back her excitement because it's like her besties are with her. It's like, she can't, I think it's okay to admit, like, honestly, Yolanda, I'm happy to see you here. It sucks that you're here, but I'm actually happy that I have like my bestie with me like that. I'm like, she's just trying to, because she knows Yolanda doesn't want to be there, but she's trying to hold back her own excitement about Yolanda being there. I also love the teacher being like, oh, you guys can call me Paul. I teach art class, as some of you know, or none of you do, because none of you have actually taken my class. Like, literally no one here has taken my class. So Rick's supposed to be there, and I love the Bueller. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm wondering, is he making that reference? Like, because these are like not millennials. These are like, they're all probably like 15, 16 or something like that. These are Gen Zers. I'm like, would they even get the reference you're making to Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Unless you're like super into oldies, because that would be considered an oldies, because it's I would still consider it an oldies, but it's like, well, truth be told, I'm a 90s baby, 92. So it's like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out like, 85? So like, that's only like, 7 years older than I am. But it's like, yeah, would kids their age even know what you're referencing? I don't know. It's one of those interesting things. But I do like that we cut to Rick out there, feeding Grundy. He's still not trying to hunt Grundy down. And he could easily try to find Grundy, but it's like, right, I'll just make sure you're okay. And I'm like, I still think that's such an interesting development of a relationship, like considering their history and everything, for you to be taking care of him like that. I find, like, yeah, you like let him go and everything and realize like, oh, he was just, treat it, he's kind of like a Frankenstein's monster type of situation, but it's still so fascinating considering your history. Like, I know you let him go even considering that history, but to be doing what you're doing is fascinating. And also the fact is you're not letting anyone know that you're doing that, which once again is just the irony, because they were getting on Courtney's case about like, right, the JSA and stuff like the ISA and stuff like that, not being vigilant, like not being too up and on. I mean, to be fair, Grundy's not doing anything villainous, so I guess he's kind of like a scared animal. So I guess it's like, right, you kind of like hold your hand out, rather than me coming to you, I'll wait for you to be less scared and comfortable enough to come to me. Like, what happens then, we'll have to wait and see. But there was an interesting conversation, like when Jenny and Pat are doing the whole thing, like running the gamut of like what she can do. And it was interesting because at first he was like, wait, the ring was charging the entire time. Even I was like, yeah, that is weird. Like, because I wasn't expecting the ring to light up. I was like, not unless it's had a charge for like the past 10 years or something. But like, what? Why would it? Like, why would it still have a charge? Because like, that's a well-known thing about the lanterns. They constantly have to charge their rings because it's not unlimited power. And I'm like, huh, interesting. I was like, and I liked how we kind of dive into that later on. I'm going to be skipping around a little bit, but I thought that is an interesting development. Like, the reason why is because she is actually what's charging the ring. She's basically the new lantern itself, which I thought was fascinating. I was like, is that because maybe like her dad was fully charged as a lantern when she was conceived? It's a little weird to get into the nitty gritty of it, but I'm like, did like the lantern genes did the lantern energy actually pass onto her so she's her own lantern battery? I'm curious, like, how does that work? I mean, maybe that's something that's come up in the comics. Like, I'm not well versed in Green Lantern. I'm only well versed enough in the character to know that's the whole shtick about, like, right, all the lanterns have to constantly recharge. Because I've only recently, like, over the past few years, learned about all the different colored lanterns, and even then I only know a fraction of them. I know the yellow lanterns, I know the red lanterns, like, there's like a whole assortment of different colors and stuff like that. Like, each one is kind of based around different emotions and stuff like that too. Really quickly too, I think that's gotta be such an interesting development because truth be told, she's kind of technically speaking, because you have to put quotes around it, the first live action lantern in a decade since the Green Lantern movie, which I enjoyed. I know a lot of people didn't like that movie, even to the point Taika and Ryan Reynolds will joke about, like, that's a whole, like, promotional material for the Free Guy movie. It was like, Green Lantern, no, don't remember us being in a movie together. I have no, like, that whole shtick. And obviously Deadpool, like, made jokes about it. It's a whole thing. Like, Ryan Reynolds make has made a joke about the whole thing. But regardless, tangents and all that aside, and the reason why I say technically is like, well, Diggle on Earth 1 got the ring. He hasn't really lanterned up. In fact, he's kind of running from that destiny, but last time we saw him on The Flash, he was kind of embracing that destiny. Other than that, there's a like 10-second scene we got from like Earth, was it 12, during Crisis on Infinite Earths at the very end that showed a lantern. And then there's also, what was the other technicality I was thinking of? Right, the other one I was thinking of is Zack Snyder filmed a Green Lantern for the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League, but they didn't use it. Instead, they wanted Martian Manhunter, but it was filmed, so that's why I say it's like a technically. So it's like she's kind of like the first, and even then she's like, well, not full blown Green Lantern. She kind of is. Like when you have the ring, you do the thing, you're Green Lanterning it out, but you're not full. I guess it's like until like the Guardian Corps like fully recognizes you. Like I don't know if you're officially a Lantern at that point in time. Regardless, it was something interesting that was kind of crossing my mind of like, oh, that's got to be kind of rough being like technically the first more official one that we've really gotten to know in the past 10 years. It's just interesting to think about. I don't know if that was even a thought process going into it. I don't even know if the actress even thought about it, but it is something interesting when you kind of break that down and think about it. It's like, oh yeah, first one that's really kind of, I mean, because we know there is going to be a live action series for HBO Max, but also like her dad isn't, I'm sure he's a Lantern from the comics. I'm not well versed in him. Obviously the only ones I'm familiar with, I'm more familiar with Hal and John, but I also know I'm only slightly familiar with Kyle. I only really know his name. Because I always feel like John's the one people want the most. Amongst the Lanterns, John's like the fan favorite. I mean, I don't say everyone feels that way, but you know, amongst the different people who've taken up monikers and mantles, like, I know, like, the one I always feel like I hear is like, for the Flash, I feel like most people's favorite Flash is Wally. I could be mistaken, but he seems to be the fan favorite. But, you know, I'm just curious about stuff like that. I always thought that's something, but, huge tangents and all that aside, she is learning how to kind of concentrate, and it is interesting that Pat is kind of training her, like, yeah, because I understand you're you know, I was a part of JSL, of course I'd know more about what you're capable of, so she ends up manifesting a little car, and it's like, oh, it makes sense because it seems like the car belonged to her little brother, like it was in the box that got sent to her, so. But obviously at the same time, it's just like, as time is going on, like, you could tell how, like, kind of jealous, Courtney is of her, and just, like, venting to Yolanda. It's like, is she really that bad? It's like, yeah, she fixed the table, and it's like, and that's a bad thing, cooking breakfast and everything. And it's like, yeah, she made these pancakes, and it's like, they are really good, and then Courtney tastes them, and it's like, they are really good. And just like her pouting, I love it. And especially when she shows up there and like everyone's gathering around, it's like, oh, you told her about the team. It's like, yeah, she has a right to know and everything. It's like, right, she's another legacy, and that just sticks the knife in a little deeper, because I immediately was like, oh yeah, I could tell why Courtney's acting this way, because she's another legacy. She feels like she doesn't fit the mold, because it's like, right, I'm another, like, she wants that whole scene of like, oh, I'm not Starman's daughter, oh, I'm not even Pat's daughter, like, I'm just someone the staff chose. Like, yeah, she kind of got over that, but that insecurity's still there. But obviously, like, Yolanda and Beth aren't legacies. There are other people like you who've taken up the mantle, but it's also like, it's a conversation where it's like, she's perfect, like I can obviously see why she's so perfect, and that's what bothers me the most, because she's what I thought I was. I thought I was Starman's daughter, and it's just like, she's more deserving. She's an actual legacy. She's more deserving of being a hero than I am. But then Pat had to point out to her, it's like, yeah, but you know why she came? Like, she came here getting answers about her dad. Like, she's who you used to be, having answers about a dad that wasn't there, you know, and. You know, it's like, right, that's quite lonely. And it's just like, because Courtney never looked at it that perspective. She kept looking so much at like, right, she's everything I'm not, when in actuality, they had a lot of common ground, which I thought was such a fascinating element to that story. But I figured, like, I liked that being the reason why Courtney had such an issue with her. It's like, not 100% that she didn't trust her, but it's also because, like, right, you're more deserving than me. So, But she does kind of apologize to her, but it's like, she's like, right, you have everything, you have this amazing power, but she gets upset because she's like, don't tell me I have everything. Because when she went to Courtney's room and saw that picture on a wall, it made her jealous. It's like, because she doesn't have what Courtney has. Like, she kind of got thrown out of the house, and it's like, now she's out in the world alone. She doesn't know where her brother is, her dad's gone, so she had no one. Where it's like, yeah, Courtney might not be a full-blown legacy, but you still are. You have the cosmic staff, and you have, like, all these people around you. You have an entire team around you. You have people, a family that loves you. It's like, she was jealous. I was almost wondering, when it initially happened, and everyone's kind of like, oh, gather around the breakfast table, I was like, did she somehow use the ring to mind control? Like, is she, like, projecting, like, oh, because it almost felt to a certain extent she was trying to take Courtney's life to an extent, but it's also like she was diving into it because, like, it's because Courtney had something she wanted, you know. So it's interesting. It's like, once again, it's always greener. The grass is always greener on the other side, type of thing. But then, like, the lantern starts getting ready to erupt because her emotions got the best of her. But like I said, Courtney points out, like, no, you can, like, you are the lantern, so you can absorb the energy. And she tries, and then explodes. I was like, whoa, they didn't kill her, right? I was like, no, that's uber depressing. But she's up there, she's like, guys, I think I can fly now. So she's full-blown lanterning it. Doesn't have the suit yet, but I'm sure, like, it is, you know, going to manifest itself, like, you know. I think, I'm trying to remember, I think it worked like that in the movie. I just don't know if that's how it always works. Like, I think the suit comes from the ring, right? Like, the ring creates the suit around you. I could be mistaken. I don't think it's like a Flash situation of, it's like, no, it's not like a Flash or Superman or like Batman thing of like, oh yeah, you just like legitimately just put the suit on. Like, I don't think it's like that. I think it is manifested by the ring. I could be 100% wrong. Maybe it varies from like different version to different version, but yeah. Sadly, she does leave at the end, though, because her main reason for coming to town was like she was hoping the ring would lead her to her brother, but in fact, it led her to the lantern. So I was about to say, like, oh, is she going to be? But it's like, no. I'd assume we haven't seen the last of her. She might pop up in later episodes or something like that. When the going gets tough and they need an ally, maybe they'll call upon her. But yeah, like, coming to be a hero isn't what she was doing. Like, with his power now, she probably hopes it'll make it easier for her to find her dad, for her brother. Now, it's interesting, though, like I said, that the lantern is gone. I'm cute, like, I guess because she's, like, maybe, like, all she needs to do is actually recharge. Very much like Rick and the whole Hour Man thing of, like, right, like, he can only use the power an hour a day. So maybe it's kind of a similar thing of, like, if she recharges, like, the Green Lantern energy naturally recharges inside of her. So, or, like, I'm curious, like, how that whole thing operates. Like, is she, like, a perpetual battery for herself? Or would, like, if she pushes herself too far, would it actually start draining away her own life force? Like, being your own battery seems like that could definitely be like draining and shortening your life type of thing. It could be, doesn't mean they would go down that direction, but who knows? Another angle to this episode is the whole situation with the guy, Richard Swift, who comes to town to Barbara asking about William's stuff, and immediately Barbara's like, oh, did you know him? It's like, no, only by reputation. It's like, oh, he's a collector, and so am I. And I'm like, that immediately, because, like, knowing who he was, that he was part of the ISA, it's like, okay, like, if you're here for his stuff specifically, like, gotta keep an eye on him. So she calls up Pat, and Pat, like, does some investigating, looks at his watch and everything, and obviously when he comes back and looks through the file, he realizes who Richard Swift is, that he might be the Shade. And I love that at the same time, Courtney's like, right, you're thinking I'm down here about files and stuff. She's like, no. She's like, this whole experience with Jenny kind of made me put things in perspective of, like, I need to kind of put being Courtney first, a daughter, a friend, and only then, if there's a bad guy around, then then be Stargirl, but don't make Stargirl everything, like the lesson Pat's been trying to teach her. And so it is his thing, because she was like, right, I haven't, like, when we first got to Blue Valley, I didn't treat you like the way I should. And obviously we went through that, like, story development and arc in the first season, but I think it's still there to some extent in this season. But it's like, right, recognizing, like, right, I don't treat you like I should. Like, you are, like, the father figure in my life. You were there for me when my own father wasn't. So, but then like Pat's like, well, that's good to hear about the whole like you not wanting to rush to be the Stargirl, doing Stargirl stuff. But it's like, right, we might have a villain in town, and she's just, and I love how she's like, yeah, we'll get the staff. I'm like, how giddy she's got. And he's like, yeah, because they made the promise not to lie to each other. It's like, right, you need to know like there's a potentially the most dangerous member of the ISA that's been missing this entire time is potentially resurfaced. So, all right, we got to let you know. Now she's gonna have to balance that. And like, right, but it's like, right, moderation. You got to still do the whole summer school thing. You got to still do the whole Courtney Whitmore thing. So keep that in mind. I didn't talk about it at the beginning, but there is the element of, hey, Cindy's mom is like, oh, and in the moment it's playing, it's like, oh, Cyndi Lauper, girls just want to have fun. I'm like, that's chosen for many different reasons. One, she's finally free. Cindy's mom is finally free from all of this. I was like, oh, Cindy hasn't come back yet. And the moment there's a knock at the door, I was like, oh, it's going to be Cindy. And it's like, because at first she's so happy, she's like breaking stuff, and then she's about to leave because it's like, yeah, the Dragon King's dead. So it's like, yeah, I'm free. And then Cindy pops back up and it's like, no! I was like, oh, you were so close. And then she uses the Eclipso jewel to kind of like brainwash her, and you're like, oh, that sucked. You were so, she's like, oh, mom, why were the locks changed? You're like, no, she was so close from leaving. But like that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, girls want to have fun. Like, it has so many meanings in that regard of her almost getting away, but also like, oh, like here's Cindy up to her evil shenanigans. But also it's like, right, they chose a song by Cyndi Lauper, and it's like, oh, here's Cindy, Shiv. So it's like I think that had to be also on purpose too, or maybe just like maybe they weren't thinking that deep into it. They were just like, oh, we want to play this song because it's like the perfect summertime song and everything too, because come on, that's like a go-to, so maybe that's all there was to it. But also her just like, they're just depressingly sweeping up the glass, and then the moment Eclipso starts getting inside of her head, I was like, you feed on chaos, don't you? So like, because we saw it like at the beginning of last episode, you push people to do bad stuff so that you can feed off of them, because it's like he's trying to be like, oh, I don't do anything. They're the ones who commit the evil. I just feed off of that negativity. So, because it's like the way he was pushing her, be like, oh, you are almost free. If you want to be free, you're going to have to kill her. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work out for her. But I was like, because at first I was like, why are you doing it? I was like, oh, Cindy, even before Cindy brought it up in conversation, I was like, oh, Cindy thinks she's in control. But this thing, it's like, she doesn't even realize she's just a means to an end. It's like, right, I'm going to use you, and you think I'm serving you. It's like, no, you're my pawn. Like, your need for power and everything and control is going to be your undoing. But basically, during Cindy ends up fighting her mom, and she proceeds to kill her. I mean, granted, that's not even your mom. She was someone that was abducted. Obviously, she's mom 2.0 because your OG mom, that whole thing. But, well, your OG fake mom. But it's like, right, these are women that were abducted, that it's like, because she had the crappy father she did, that, yeah, these women were abducted, but in a twisted Stepford Wives type of way, these were the closest things she has to a mom. So, but Eclipso takes control and ends up killing her. And it's like, oh yeah, like I devoured her. It's like, yeah, like all that anger and resentment like inside of her. It's like, yeah, I stepped in just to protect you. She was like, no, my body's mine. Don't ever take control of me again, or I would steal you back. It's like, right. And him just pausing, being like, yes, you are in control, Cindy. I'm sorry. I'm here to serve you. And she's saying like, I didn't want her dead. And it's like, yeah, because she was even though to be fair, it was a fabricated family, very Ava style with the whole clone, obviously with her clone family. Well, her fake family, her being a clone and everything. But it's also because for Cindy, it's like, right, you were the only closest thing I had to a mom. That's why I didn't want to let you go, because it's like, right, I need you. I love you. It's a little demented and crazy, but still. But part of me is like, did he push her to do that because he's trying to isolate Cindy so it makes it even easier to control her? But it's also interesting because, like, right, Cindy's doing all this evil stuff, but I guess she hasn't really done evil yet. So he hasn't really been able to, like, because, like, because it's not even just evil, it's corruption. It's meant to, like, corrupt someone. So that's what he devours. Like, once he's corrupted you, it's like, that corruption's spreading across you like a plague. I think it has to build up enough. So maybe that's what he's waiting for, like, Cindy to be fully corrupted. Because, I mean, to be fair, she's serving as a vessel right now. So for him, maybe it's a situation of, I'm a keep Cindy around. I could devour her, but she's the perfect host right now, so I'm not going to devour her yet. I'm going to keep her around long enough till I can devour others, until like I can fully take control of her body without her being like wiping out her consciousness and making her body mine, or maybe devouring enough corruption that I eventually get back my own body. Whatever the plan may be on that front. It's actually interesting to see that tear across Cindy's face. You're like, oh, never would have thought you'd see her get emotional like that. But obviously these are people now, because now it's like she also has no one. She's all alone. So very, very sad circumstance. Yeah, she, like I said, you feel a little bad for Cindy. Like that's why she's building the ISA, because she feels like it's her legacy and all that. But it's also, she doesn't have anything else. Like she's trying to, I think in her own twisted way, she's trying to build a family. She was always kind of the mean girl who had everything, and then she kind of lost everything because she always thought she was better than everyone. But at the end of the day, you thought you were better than Courtney, and Courtney, kind of like Jenny, like kind of wants what Courtney had, like wanted what Courtney had. Like I think same thing for Cindy. It's like you have everything and I have no one. It's like, yeah, she feels like on top of the world, but it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, you're super lonely because you have no one. So that's why you're pushing even more for this ISA thing, I'm sure. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.